Hey everybody, welcome to Ezekiel's Fishing Bucket. I'm Ezekiel, and this is actually a part 2 to my previous video about sinkers. I'll link that in the description below. But this is about the different rigging methods these are the same sinkers from the previous video. And that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to start with the barrel and go up to the split shot, then the bullet, and then we'll actually skip to the no roll sinker because it actually gets rigged the same way as these do. And then once you get into basically this category, these are rigged a bit differently, and I'm going to show you those today. With that being said, let's get into it. First up is the barrel sinker. So I have this rigged Carolina rig style on this particular one. And one thing you will hear me mention a lot is the use of beads, because they're very important. Because as this thing moves down the line, and when it makes contact with that knot, without the bead, the sinker is causing damage every time it slams that knot. And one time too many, and the next time you cast, or even worse, when you have a fish on, it'll break and you'll lose everything off the lower end. This is another option. So it is the barrel sinker, except you've created a stop point with a split shot. Depending on how much weight you have in your barrel or barrels, if you're using more than one, you will want to use more than one split shot, and you're going to want to cramp it down pretty tight. And honestly, it works good for a while, but over time, the repetitive banging of the barrel usually will cause the split shots to slide over time. And that sliding of the split shot is very abrasive to your fishing line, and once again will sooner or later lead to a break off. Next, we got the bullet weight, and again with the bead below. And depending on how close you are to, if you're running a leader to a main line, then you might want to put a bead on top, again for knot protection. I'm sure by now you can see why I broke this up the way I did, because all of these weights, including this no roll, they're rigged basically the same way. It's a Carolina rig style, emphasis on the importance of the beads and allowing it to actually have the freedom of motion when you cast it to be able to move up and down your line. Next are the split shots. Depending on what I'm using them for, I'll typically rig them about a foot, maybe a little more, away from the hook. If you stagger them, so you say you have one here and then you move up a little bit and then put another one, it will change how it hits and lays in the water, which sometimes adds a certain element of stability depending on the situation. So they are a lot of fun to play with, and if you have a bait that is very lightweight, if you put these a little higher up your line, they will fall faster, and then they will pull that bait down, so you get a really nice downward movement, fast downward movement on your bait once these basically eat the slack up between them and your bait. So let's talk about the bank sinker, the pyramid, and the Sputnik. The reason I separated these from all the others is because the others were inserts versus these you see have eyelets. And I will go ahead and mention that I have seen people just, well, do this and call it a day. To me, this is madness because you are putting a very abrasive eyelet just to freely slide up and down your line, basically rubbing sandpaper every time you cast this. That same thing goes for just using the eyelet on the bank sinker or the Sputnik. This is a sinker slider. Its whole job is for you to be able to put any of these sinkers that have an eyelet on the clamp with your beads. Because it is a very smooth plastic tube, there's no abrasion happening to your line, again with the beads, and it helps keep things separated on your rig as well, as far as not getting tangled up. This is another rigging option where you would be putting any sinker that has an eye on the very bottom. This is a high-low rig. If you are somewhere that is wide open and you don't run any risk of snagging anything, I highly suggest the high-low rig. You can either run two of the same baits or two different baits at the same time. And if you remove either one of these, so like if you just removed that one, it's a bottom drop rig. If you remove that one, it's a top drop rig. And that is versatile depending on what you're fishing for and where those fish are holding. So that was part 2 to the sinkers video. Sorry, this one is a bit longer than the previous one, but there was a little bit more information to go over. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any suggestions of topics that you want me to cover, leave them in the comment section below, and we'll talk to y'all next time.